The thing about being an influencer is it's exhausting. Like if you literally, I tell people, why don't you make a post of you with your face in front of the camera and do it 7 days in a row, make 7 posts, and then talk to me on the 8th day and see how you feel. And then, if you feel good, then do it for, a year. Or do it for a month. And most people are like, this is exhausting. Like, I mean, then, people, and you try to do stuff that's interesting, and then people are like, this kid's a moron, or, you get criticism. And it becomes, you have to know how to handle it, and you have to deal with it. And so it does become a little bit about balance too, and not everybody is, this is a great job, but, I would do it 24/7 if I could, and I have, but, you have to there's other people in my life now that need me and love me and want me to be there for them. So, and I thought about that world record and how I would do it, and I actually wrote down a business plan, and then that became the second act of the book. And it was, when I was done with that, I was like, oh, this is full circle. I went from just not having a clue as a kid. I go way back because I started writing stories. Like, people need to know my story of alcoholism. They need to know where that came from. They need to know the story about me hunting balls at Arlington Park to understand where I kind of came from and how I did all this stuff. So it ended up kind of being more of a life story with an ending and a world record.
Patrick Koenig on the Content Clubhouse podcast, though you may know him as the world record holder for the most 18-hole golf courses played in a calendar year with a whopping 580 in 365 days. Patrick, you completed that epic quest nearly 2 years ago, and I'm sure it's still the first thing that somebody meeting you for the first time brings up. And I'm no different, though rather than asking the basic, what was your favorite course or something like that, take me to your most nervous, uncomfortable, uneasy moment that you had on that tour, be that on the course or on your travels. Keep it PG, it's a family show, but I imagine some of these, desert truck stops and other travel stories get a little weird at certain points.
There's a lot of moments where you're out of your comfort zone, and there's a lot of things that will piss you off because I lived in an RV, right, and I drove around and just played course from course about living in an RV just in general. But there was one moment that I was like, this is it. It doesn't get any more annoying than this. And I had played I played a day to 36. I hadn't slept much the night before because I had to travel. It was in the New York area. Anybody that knows that New York traffic really sucks. And especially it is compounded infinitely by if you're driving an RV around New York. You don't see a lot of those because nobody's dumb enough to do it, because the parkways all will decapitate the top of your car or your RV if it's over 10 feet. And I was at, I think, 12. Maybe 13 feet. So you're stressing out because you can't go the normal ways. You can't go down the parkways. One wrong turn, and you take the air conditioning unit off the top of your thing. It's a whole thing. It's game over as far as I was concerned. Did not want to do that. And I remember, so I'm driving. I'm almost getting to this rest stop where I'm going to stay, and it's it's traffic. I can barely keep my eyes open. I'm like, God, this is awful. And then it just starts pouring down rain, and I can't see a damn thing. And it wasn't just a kind of pouring down rain. It was just bang, you couldn't see anything. I'm like, this is it. This is the most horrible thing. Fortunately, that only lasted, another 30 minutes. But when you're tired, 30 minutes seems like an eternity. But I made it to that rest stop, and then I think the next day I played. What's the one in New Jersey, right across from the not Liberty National. It's Bayonne. I played Bayonne the next day, which is a great place. So those moments certainly paved way for some great experiences on the golf course.
That's very cool. Well, you dropped the final putt on your epic RGV Tour 2.0 on January 2nd, 2024. And since then, though you may not still be riding around in that giant RV, your adventure certainly hasn't stopped since then. Those of us in the golf industry know you as an exceptional photographer, and your work has continued to take you all over the place, capturing images that honestly dreams are made of. But that wasn't always your job. So take us back before the RVs, before the world record pursuits. What's your golf origin story, and how did you get into working as a golf course photographer?
That's good. I mean, that's good. It's good because it's people tend to focus on really the fun stuff, but it's what the stuff that comes before that is the stuff that makes us who we are and why we tend to excel in certain areas. And it really kind of it goes back to me. My origin story is, I mean, I'm a kid in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I start. First off, I started just looking for golf balls. I've always been a collector of things. Now it's scorecards or whatnot. But back then it was golf balls. I wasn't even a golfer. I just went to the golf and like walked in the creeks and felt the golf balls with my toes. And we get like hundreds of them. I would sell them at the garage sale, the annual garage sale that we had at our association. And I made like $500 one year. And back then, this is like 80, mid 80s, and I was like, I made like $500. I'm like 5 years old or so. I don't know how old I was. Probably a little bit older. Anyways, I was like, I thought I was rich. I was like, I'm gonna move out and get my own house, and like I'm set for life. But that was kind of my first experience with golf, and then eventually I started hitting those golf balls, and it like, if you're a golfer and a passionate one, you know that it was like, it just kind of takes off like an addiction or a disease. Like you just like, this is it. This is what I am now, and it's all consuming. So that happened to me right when I was probably around 11 years old, and I loved it. So the golf course I grew up on, I credit this a lot for my appreciation and gratitude of where I'm at today, because this golf course was nothing special at all. I mean, there was no bunkering on this thing. All the greens are circular in nature. Little par three, like just jammed through this neighborhood. I guess they had some sort of like land that they weren't going to use, and they just managed to jam a golf course into this thing. I don't know how they did it. 9 holes, a couple par fours, nothing longer than 300 yards, but really not that. And I just thought it was like the coolest place in the world. I'm like, this is awesome. It's so cool. And so I grew up loving that and just being like, man, this place is rad. I remember I would take pictures back with I had like flash bulbs. I didn't know what I was doing as a kid. And you just like, I'd take pictures of the golf course. I'm like, this is so cool. And like these photos are like, they're horrible. But I was like, this is amazing. And so that is, I mean, if I were to have grown up at some, I see these country club kids today, and it's amazing they get access to these clubs, but honestly it kind of it spoils them, right? They have it's just in a tremendous place to go, and then that's their kind of, this is what a golf course is like. Mine was the other way. I was kind of like this, and I loved it probably more than some of these kids appreciate some of the finer courses in the world. So when I get to go, and I remember my dad, there's a story in my book about this, which I thought has always been really cool. It's stuck with me. As my dad took us on a family vacation to South Carolina, and this was when I became a golfer. I was like, we got to play golf. We got to play golf. I don't know anything about golf outside of Fort Wayne, Indiana. I mean, I know much about bunkers. And I remember we went and played, and I got to play the ocean course at Kiwa Island. He dropped it. It was like, it was a lot of money. I looked at all the details up in my thing, but it was a lot, and he paid for that green fee. I could tell he was like a little, well, here we go. That round of golf, I'll remember today, I played very good. I shot like a 75. It was my best round of golf for a while. I had the scorecard framed on my wall for a long time. Birdied the 10th hole. I rolled in this bomb of a putt. And this is what, 35 years ago now. And I remember it. And that course, I mean, today is one of the most beautiful courses in the world. And it really just kind of blew me away, opened my eyes to what a golf course could be. And so that's kind of the beginning. There's a lot of things that kind of step along the way, and every day, if you challenge yourself, give yourself something new, some new exciting place to visit, and go to. There's hopefully continuous growth, but that's kind of the things that allowed me to be so. And it really, I tell you, like that. Everybody can be a photographer these days. Everybody's got a pretty good camera on their phone, and lighting comes in, and you can snap a shot. So how do you differentiate yourself and make yourself the best in the world? And I really believe that it starts with like a firm passion and a love, and just like an obsession and desire. those things can come out in a photograph, but you have to have them. And if you don't, I think over the course of time, you're not going to be able to, get up early and run out there to capture the moment this sun hits this portion of the green. You have to have that desire to do it. Otherwise, you'll get burnt out and won't want to get up early and skip stuff. No, that's not me. I'm mad if I'm not there.
So you talk about that passion. When did that become something you wanted to try to pursue, full time? You mentioned kind of on your website, 2018, you leave your sales job. Just kind of expand upon that story a little bit. What was like the initial leap into this is what I want to do? What did that look like?
Yeah, I mean this is the cool part. This is, I feel like, where I can help a lot of people today, because the majority of Americans are doing something that they don't love to do right now. They're at a desk doing something that they don't particularly care for. Maybe they're good at it. Maybe they do love it. I mean, not to say that, but there's a lot of people that just don't love what they do, and they do it, is to make money and feed a family, and it's all good. But what if there was a way to love what you do every day? That's unbelievable. And so that's what I kind of saw, and I jumped off. I quit my job in 2018. Just said, I'm gonna go try. Fortunately, I was in a good situation. Didn't have, I had a wife. I didn't have any kids, so we didn't have to. Not a lot of people were depending on me for economic viability, which was great. So I had some savings built up, and so I quit my job and just kind of explored and tried to find a way in the golf industry. I knew I'd meet a lot of people, and I was just kind of very open-minded about this whole thing. Exploratory year in 2018, and that's what really taught me that I could be a golf course photographer. I photographed every course along the way, got much better, learned some tricks, and that was kind of like my proving grounds where honestly, looking back, I played a lot of great golf courses, and some of the courses that I was playing really helped me, because it's like, this course is great, I can't miss, and so I got some great photos based upon, not because I'm this great photographer, but because I was on a great golf course, and I still had that eye, and knew enough to be dangerous at that point. But now I'm very good, to the point where I would consider myself one of the best in the world, and I have a process and I'm details, and I can show up at a golf course and consistently deliver world-class imagery results, unless it's not pouring down rain the entire time, which does happen. So you have to be, a master of weather and know when the light strikes, where it hits, and all these different things. And I've gotten very efficient at it, having photographed, thousands of golf courses. Well, not quite 2,000, but probably, over 1,000, probably around like 1,500, which is a lot. It's a lot. Not all of them are commissioned. I just did it for fun. But now I'm doing much more, almost exclusively commission shoots. Now they've got a little baby girl that needs a roof over her head and a mouth fed. So life's changed a little bit for me in that regard, but it has. It's never been not fun. And I always tell people that, like, and if people have an idea of what they want to do, kind of like in the vein. I mean, if you're totally clueless, I wouldn't say quit your job and just go roaming. Probably not a bad idea, depending on your situation. But if you have an idea, I tell people just jump off, just do it. Because what I found is that and I believe this of other people too, I don't think I'm anything special, is that I was remarkably resilient. And I found a way if I had to. If you don't have to, you won't. But I was like, all right, I'm up here. I got to find a way. And then I clawed my way from one job to the next. Found a way to pay the rent. Found a way to do this and then this and then my business started growing. And each year it's gotten better and bigger. And I've grown with it. It's been just a joy to be able to do that. And I feel like people can do that as well. It doesn't have to be in golf course photography. It could be in anything. You can really just jump off. And if you fail, you're going to learn way more than you would sitting at your desk, wasting you only get so many days, right? In this world, on this life. And, try not to waste them. That's my advice. It's easy to talk from a position of, I did it. And that would be and it's fun that I see other people that I've inspired, will send me a message or say, hey, I quit my job. I'm working at Wells Fargo, and now I work at a golf course, and I love it. he like I moved to Carolinas. It's a real story, and that's been, and so that's I don't know what else is better in life than inspiring other people to have a better life. I don't take full credit for that, but like he literally told me that I was a part of that inspiration. I'm like, well, that's just, I don't know if there's a thing better in life when it comes to like a career that you're able to do that and give that to other people is really special.
Thinking about the photography, you're the first ever full-time golf photographer that I've spoken to on this show that is ostensibly about golf content creators, which of course you are in a very literal sense and in other ways, but in a very different sense than say a Grant Horvat or the Brian Bros of the world, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But you also are very active on social media. What role has social content played in your career journey so far, and how does it fit into or work alongside your quote unquote professional photography career?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I've been around since I started doing the social media when it was started. So a lot of these guys, there's a new crop of these guys, and it's all very video based. There's a YouTube generation, and they're hammering the video there, and the algorithm has pushed a lot of us to the side in terms of the view when it comes to just photography. So it's a very different world now than when it was 5 or 10 years ago, when it was just kind of first starting. It hasn't been around that long if you think about it, but it changed my life. I mean, for the most part, Instagram allowed me some fantastic opportunities to kind of get the ball rolling for myself and my career. And it was just, I was posting golf course photography and making fun videos. I did, a couple of, there was things that caught. I did one where I threw water balloons at myself, which blew up. Golf Digest reposted some stuff, and it's just kind of like the old thing. And then I got a good following, and so people started inviting me to on these trips, and I was like, well, man, I would pay to do this. This is unbelievable. I get to go play this golf course. And then, and it really allowed me to have a platform and a value proposition to these golf courses. They wanted to see me. And then I got good at writing. I also wrote a book, and I've always loved to write. It's a great way to like take your time, collect your thoughts, and be like, here is this experience, and here's all the details that matter, versus just you and I having a conversation. It's tough to get every detail right and remember every little bit, but if you write, you can really sculpt a story and tell your story. And so all of these different things that I learned and kind of started doing was kind of based upon growing social media, because that's where the excitement was. That's where the opportunities were coming from, and so to this day, it's part of my offering. When a client comes and says, "Hey, we want to do photography for our course," which I got an inquiry this morning, which is, I love I love it. If you're listening and want me to come shoot your golf course, go to my website, and I'll be thrilled to put a proposal together for you. But they usually entail a multitude of things, right? It's not just the photography. So, it could be videography. I like to write about I do a little blog post, and then combine that with my photography, and then I do social media posts. Everything on, I still call it Twitter and Instagram posts there, and people love that. Some of the things, especially public courses. I did some stuff for a couple clients that are like very private, and they were like, "We just want the photos. Please don't do anything." And so I'm happy to be quiet, as well. But it's all part of my package, right? So you get social media exposure, you get writing, you get photography, videography, whatever you want, and I really customize that to the individual client. So that's kind of that's my business model, and it's worked really, really well for me. And I think having a personality beyond just a guy taking pictures, I think it matters. People want to work with people that they like. I like to think I'm a likable and fun-loving golf guy, and so to have me out at your golf course for 3 to 4 days, I think is more of a investment in me, and then not necessarily like, oh, we just want some dude to snap picture of the third hole. It's like that's not what I want to do. It's not it's not where my value lies. Certainly I can do that for you, and it's part of it, but it's more than that. And so social media is kind of plays a part, continues to, although we are getting squeezed out by the young YouTubers coming in, and there's always going to be somebody hotter coming down the pipeline, and that's okay. That's fun. I love to see, and I get to meet it with all these people and see them from time to time, and always appreciate how the game is evolving and growing. If you don't change with it, then you're gone. You cannot dislike change, and that's an opportunity to do something, and if you're not jumping on it, somebody else is, and that's just the way the world works. You can accept it, or you can get pushed aside even quicker. So as I'm getting older, I see that being my challenge into the future, is to stay pivotable and not get set in my ways, and maintain that gratefulness for where I'm at. I don't think it'll be super hard for me to do some of those things, but that's where I'm really focused on. I want to make sure that I'm continuing to evolve while still doing like what I love to do, right? It's photography and capturing that perfect shot. I don't think that's ever going to get old. I don't think it's going to be replaced by AI. They can try, and go for it, but I just do not think that there's something special that the great ones are able to capture with a camera, and that's what I strive to do.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot there that I want to kind of pick at and ask some more follow-ups on. So you mentioned how, your added value, right? So again, you are, of course, a phenomenal golf course photographer. The content on your Instagram, much of which is your professional photography, I mean, right, just by default makes for great social content, right? These are beautiful images that anybody who, likes golf or even just likes looking at a pretty picture would be interested in seeing. But more than that, a lot of other people in the space that are in your similar line of work, like an Evan Schiller, they're not in front of the camera nearly as often as you are. Kind of what do you have a content strategy? Do you think of yourself as an influencer in that way? Is that a intentional thing you're doing that feels like you feel like adds to your value?
Yeah, I mean there is a strategy there. It was a mixture of like, hey, here's my photography. The thing about being an influencer is it's exhausting. Like if you literally, I tell people, why don't you make a post of you with your face in front of the camera and do it 7 days in a row, make 7 posts, and then talk to me on the 8th day and see how you feel. And then, if you feel good, then do it for, a year or do it for a month. And most people are like, this is exhausting. Like, I mean, then, people, and you try to do stuff that's interesting, and then people are like, this kid's a moron, or, you get criticism, and it becomes, you have to know how to handle it and you have to deal with it. So I'm fortunate in the fact that I have a lot of very easy content to put out there, that's like, I'll post a picture of, Wade Hampton. Everybody's, it's great. That hole's awesome. I can't believe they spend that much on those trees. There's the photo I'm thinking of has got these 2 trees that I think they spend over $1 million a year to make sure they're maintained. It's a beautiful par 3 with like these little goalposts. Anyways, so there is a benefit to being a golf course photographer when I can do that. But I love to talk about the stuff. I got my Golfish hat on. These guys make great polos, and I'm just like, why not share this with other people and take advantage of my platform to talk about things that I like. I only work with people I like, brands that I like, stuff that I think is cool. And it's fortunate enough that I don't have to like just take everything that comes my way, because like, no, I'm making money from photography. Like I'm doing what I want, and then I'm able to kind of create some supplemental content and share my personality and share my love for the game, and that helps with the social thing as well. So I don't have it dialed into. I'd love to do more of like but it's exhausting. It's a lot of work. I'm a busy guy now with that little kiddo, but 3 to 1 would be ideal, where I'm like doing 3 photos, and then I've got a fun video where I'm playing a course or doing this or talking about that. That's kind of the goal, but it ends up inevitably being more of the photography as I get busy. And I was shooting every course for every day, not every course, but every day in June and July, and so it does become a little bit about balance too, and not everybody is this is a great job, but I would do it 24/7 if I could, and I have. But you have to like, oh, there's other people in my life now that need me and love me and want me to be there for them. So balance has always been a hard thing for me. As a recovering alcoholic, as an existing golf junkie, balance is never been a strong suit, and I feel like that's a challenge for a lot of Americans. Finding your priorities and balancing them is a never-ending struggle. But I tend to get like honed in. I'm like on this one thing, and then I just obsess on it, which is great for setting world records. So it's got some benefits too. But like you have to make sure the peripheral damage is not so extensive that it wasn't worth it. It's hard to do.
Yeah, I think that's something that people, as those of us who love to consume golf content, right, watching all these people, following all these people, something that nobody really has thought about. And I guess now that we're kind of into a handful of years into this whole golf content experiment, especially post-COVID, but as years continue to go by, what does I hesitate to call it an exit strategy because I don't know that anybody will ever just quit doing it. But like you, for example, have reached a point in your life where there are other priorities now. Like for a lot of these YouTubers or these people that I've spoken to on this show who are big on Instagram and TikTok, where they describe it as a hamster wheel, right? Like you got to post every single day if you want to maintain, the audience that you have. And they'll be the first to tell you that it's exhausting. But how have you found, as probably one of the first people at this point, to kind of reach that stage of like, okay, trying to reevaluate how much time am I spending on this? Do I want to continue spending that much time on this? I think that's just a fascinating subject in a niche industry that I think everybody got started in within the last few years, and we're about to see kind of where people end up with it. I'm just curious, what has that thought process been like for you as you plan out the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I think it's a kind of a natural evolution. Is that when you first capture this, it feels like lightning in a bottle. You have something special. You're getting these followers. There's this kind of superficial dopamine hit that you get of this growth, and people are loving you, and you're getting new opportunities, and you're like you feel the pressure to do it, and you rock and roll, and then that's great because you're young and you've got some time, and nobody else is counting on you, and but you have to be, and people become very quickly aware that there's a lot of, especially with it depends on what you're doing too. So for some of us, it's much easier. A lot of the girls that are using their looks and their that appeal opens another can of worms from weirdo perverts out there and dudes, and just the self-esteem issues that can kind of come with that sort of plight. While you can unlock an empire, as is people like Paige. I think Paige Sporanic's kind of led the way, and I'm friends with her, and so I hear this stuff, and it's like, that's awful. And but the upside is pretty great, so it's kind of like, how do you manage that whole thing? And you do kind of reach a point in maturity where like you just kind of stop giving up. You're like, I don't care. And so the followers and the growth do not become as important. You don't care, like maybe your engagement goes up, maybe it doesn't, maybe, and a lot of it, I've seen people go like just gone, like, I'm not doing this anymore. And then they get shadow banned by the algorithm, or something happens, and it's like super discouraging. You build this community and audience, and then Instagram says, we're not going to show, like, you don't have access to your audience anymore. So it's dangerous building a platform, and realize what you're doing. You're building a platform on somebody else's platform. You're doing a job for them. You're not doing it for yourself. Like, you're building, as much as I don't think it's going to happen, but a lot of these YouTubers, if it's just YouTube could just say, see you later tomorrow. You can delete your account, wipe you out. So build a brand for yourself. I think people kind of understand, and build a website. Find a business that exists without Instagram or YouTube, and that's kind of what I've done. So it's like I feel like I'm in a good place where it's like, all right, if Instagram, something happens tomorrow and it's gone forever, it won't be. But imagine it disappears tomorrow. I'm still in a place where I can like, okay, well, this is a blow, but I can find a way. And so that's cool. for me. And I think like if you can find a different, look at what you're doing and kind of your niche and see if there's an opportunity for you to do something that you own. I play golf with a lot of people that have done a lot of really awesome things and have what many describe as you money, and money that is allows them to do whatever they want. And the one thing they all have in common is they own businesses. It's theirs. They control what goes on. And if you don't, and somebody else does, you're not the man or the woman. You don't have control of the situation, and so be mindful of that. I certainly am, and it's not a comforting feeling to know that somebody else could just be like, pull that plug on you. I think, and that's not going to happen with like a lot of these big social media. They're very aware that people, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people rely on these audiences for their very lucrative lifestyles, some of them. So I don't think it's going to happen, but like that's kind of my advice for it. So if you you kind of can, and you can build that brand, that personal brand. You can take that with you too. So like there's a lot of intangibles that people will get from those. And kind of once you start to realize some of those things, I think you kind of find more of an exit strategy where it's like you work when you want to work. You control the technology doesn't control you. It's more of a mindset that you see change as you kind of like Instagram does all this stuff or whatever the hell they're doing, and I don't know what's going on half the time. And I just I spend a lot less time on Instagram than people might think that I do, and just having an audience like that. And so that's been helpful for me. But eventually I still have to get on there, and I still do stuff, and I still spend a good chunk of time working on social media. But if that makes sense, I think that kind of answers your question. It's a dangerous world, and like a lot of us don't navigate it as well as we could, and it's still new, and we're figuring it out.
But as you mentioned too, right? It can be very, very lucrative. You mentioned kind of your brand deals and looking on your Instagram, looking at a few others, some big ones with Genesis, with Echo Golf Shoes, and others. I'm assuming that is more of a result of your social media presence rather than the photography. Is that the case?
Yeah. I mean, most of these brands, they want numbers, they want audience, it's marketing, right? So if I can show it to a million people, well, it's worth a lot of money. So those are where you get, and I'm small fries compared to a lot of others out there. The YouTube stuff is very good because it, pays well. It does a good job that's why video is popular, because it generates more money because clients will say, hey, they're talking about my shoes, there's a video, and it's more engaging and all these different things. So the more money in advertising, and so that's why it's all switched. I mean, everything is just follow where the money is. But yeah, I look at that as my that's a nice to have. That's my supplemental thing. Wow, that's cool. I don't admire the folks that have to do that for their sole source of income. That becomes exhausting. So it's kind of like, oh, cool. I got a deal with something going on with Cobra. And I can leverage my story or this and that to, get some free golf clubs or something, and maybe make a little bit of money. But the photography is where I've built my business, and that's been my business plan.
Yeah. Well, you talk about the business model. You have recently added to that in the form of book sales as a published author. The United States of Golf, chronicling your many adventures across the country playing golf. You've told the story of your travels, through your camera, through your blog. What made you want to tell it in a 350-page physical book?
Yeah, I mean, it was something that after I quit my job and did the first tour, I was like, I got to write a book about this. It was something that's like, this is a book. I felt it was a story, and I had all these great stories to tell. It's like there's so many of them. Like everybody knows, if you play a lot of golf, you have like a funny story about like, when a kid crapped his pants or something, like stories like that, and it's funny, and it was like there needs to be a book about like this whole thing, because I accumulated all these different things. Weird stuff happened to me on the road, and then I wrote this book after 2018, and I probably had a little over 120 pages. And then life got busy, and I just was like, it wasn't really a book. It was a book, but it was kind of like the beginning of one. And then I started doing photography, and then I got the call to do this world record It was a company called Golf Game Book gave me a call and said, "Hey, you ever think about doing this again?" And I thought about that world record and how I would do it, and I actually wrote down a business plan, and then that became the second act of the book. And it was when I was done with that, I was like, "Oh, this is full circle." I went from, you know, just not having a clue as a kid. I go way back because I started writing stories. Like, people need to know my story of alcoholism. They need to know where that came from. They need to know the story about me hunting balls at Arlington Park to understand where I kind of came from and how I did all this stuff. So it ended up kind of being more of a life story with an ending and a world record. And it was, after I did the second tour, I added on a bunch more stories, bunch more photographs, and I was like, oh, now this book is dense. Like, I could have kept writing. It could be like one of these, big old 400-page deals. I think it's like 300 some pages, but it's glorious. I mean, it was really cool, a really rewarding experience. I wrote the book, just because I felt compelled to. I wrote it for myself, for the ones I love, so I could give it to them. And it's I put everything in there too. I put everything. It was open and honest with myself and kind of what I'd went through. And it was a really cool experience just to do that. I'd have done it just to do it. And now comes the fun part. They're starting to ship. People are getting, I'm getting responses and messages that I can't believe. And it's fun that I get to share it with other people, and it resonates with other people, and it's fun. Like, the book is fun. Like, if nothing else, you can open it. It's meant to be like one sits on a coffee table, you look at a couple of photos, and then you read a chapter, which they're very consumable, and maybe it's a short 2-page story about something that happened on course number 310, and that's great. And so it's consumable, but the whole thing creates kind of like this life story for me that I think people will love. I know I love to do it, and usually if you love to do something, you'll find some other people that love it too. So that's what I'm doing today: signing books and sending them out.
Well, I wanted to shout out your book or provide some kind of promotion for you, but I don't think I can do it any better than you've already done. On your website, pjkoenig.com, and I just stumbled across this, but under, quote, actual reviews by many famous and real live people, you got some glowing comments from a few dignitaries that I think are worth mentioning here. From Frank in Long Island, quote, "I may have missed my father's funeral, but I am not missing the pre-sale for the United States of Golf." Another
that's a real
reads...
person.
My only regret in life is that I didn't live long enough to read this book, from Pee Wee Herman. Some other big names chiming in. This would be the capstone of my career, to play Patrick Koenig in the forthcoming movie about this book, says Brad Pitt, but not to be outdone by George Clooney, who you have is saying, "Whatever you do, don't give the role to Brad, give it to me," which I quite enjoyed all of those.
Yeah, I mean, Pitt and Clooney are always fighting over, me and roles, who gets to play me, who gets to be my best friend, stuff like that. And, take it easy, guys. That's what I say.
Well, I think either would do a phenomenal job. But if the listeners don't want to take George and Brad's word for it, you've provided an excellent live reading on your Instagram that I'd love to play.
And now a reading from the new book, The United States of Golf, by Patrick Koenig. The man calmly takes down his trousers, pulls out his wiener, and begins to urinate freely onto the grass. Our path to the 10th tee went directly beneath this man's position, and quite possibly through the stream of piss that was now flowing onto the cart path. We proceed without interruption. The host member driving the golf cart did not break eye contact with the road and trudged forward purposefully. I am a newcomer to this sort of behavior. This situation was completely foreign to me. Like an idiot, I made direct eye contact with the man as we neared his position. We locked eyes, and the man did not flinch or even attempt to redirect his flow. Instead, he offered up one of the most genuine smiles of contentment that I've ever seen from a grown man, the sort of smile that said, "My wife never lets me piss on the carpet at home." I love the fact that I get to read that for my daughter. She was just thrilled. You can see she's enthralled in that clip there. But that's a real story. That when I wrote that, I was just laughing because it was such a ridiculous moment. and I would just write it and laugh. I just had the time of my life writing that chapter, and that's just like the for like a paragraph. There's a whole thing on that thing, but that's a fun story from a men's only club in the Chicago area. Not to be mentioned. People could probably figure this out. It's not super hard, but I didn't want to, throw them under the bus too bad. But it was a great day. That place is awesome, and it's got a lot of history. And I mean, I loved it. If that guy wouldn't have done that, hopefully he gets a copy of the book and he reads it. He's like, "Oh, I remember those guys. I almost pissed on them." So there's a lot of people in this book, and they're like, I mean, if you play golf, you might be in this book and not even know it, which is kind of a wild thing that I'm writing stories about people and my interactions with everything from, I mean, I doubt the Nazi gem store owner from Texas is going to pick up a copy, but that's a good story too. Not a fan of the Nazis at all, but there's a story in there about some stuff. It's just a fun book, and it was really a joy to write, and I hope that other people can find something in there, and it's just get one. I mean, if I was I have a little golf library over there, and if it wasn't me that had lived that, I'd buy it, put it right up there next to Scotland's Gift and the official guide to golf courses from Tom Doak, right up there. It's or Tom Coyne. Tom Coyne wrote the foreword for this book, and Tom. Most people, if you're a lover of golf books, will know that Tom did a course called Ireland, a course called Scotland, a course called Home, and he's got he is the New York Times best-selling author, and I got him to write he participated in my my journey, and he wrote the foreword. So I joke and say there will at least be some good writing in this book with Tom. Tom, he did a bang-up job in the foreword. We're all like, oh yeah. We read it and we're like, this is, yeah, oh yeah, it's great. So get it for the foreword, if nothing else.
Well, hard to top your own pitch there, but before I get you out of here, is there anything else you want to share about the book and where people can find it?
Yeah, I mean, it's Back Nine Press. It's called The United States of Golf. I tell you, if you pick it up and you read that thing cover to cover and you send me a message saying this book sucks and so do you, I'll give you your money back. But you got to do that. You got to do this book sucks and so do you, and then I'll ship that baby back to me, and then I'll send you. Well, I'll send you a note with your refund right in there too. I'll let you know what I think of you. So I mean, that's it. I mean, the book is fun, and it tickles me that I get to say, buy my book. Really cool. So thanks for having me on and let me talk about my life a little bit.
Absolutely, it's a very interesting one, and you can learn more about it. Check out the book. And again, read about all the stories that he couldn't tell on here because it's worth checking out. So appreciate the time, Patrick.
Great, thanks, Nathan.